I lived in a little town in north central Florida on 3.5 acres of wooded land with very high canopies. So high, in fact, the moonlight wouldn't shine through. It's very dark at night. The property was really dark in the front, like abnormally dark. The private dirt drive that ran alongside it had no lighting. The owner of the property before me told me that there was once a trailer in the front. An older lady used to live there. I guess she owned the land originally, and she was pressure canning one evening, and the cooker that she was using suffered a catastrophic explosion that severely injured the lady. And she laid there for quite a while before she died. You could see the area that the old trailer used to be. It had it was very dark up there. I had some bad run-ins with some of our neighbors. I always kind of just felt a negative energy there in general. On the front of the property, but on the opposite side of where the old trailer used to be, it was along my driveway into the property, actually. There was a gray workshop. It was about 2,000 square feet or so, with two roll-up metal bay doors on its west side and a regular door facing the south towards the house. The workshop, it had very high fluorescent ballast lights, and the whole setup, was outlined in the shop with shelves and cabinets. There was a rectangular wood bracket for a TV, and high up along the wall shelving in the corners for speakers. I spent a lot of time in there alone. I always kind of felt, a little creeped out, but this is my shop, this is where I get things done. The shop itself, the previous owner had used it to work on motorcycles and such, so, it was already set up as sort of a mechanic's shop. So the shop was about 100 meters or so from the house, and the house was a barn-style, two-story house, made on the inside of cedar. The kitchen and the laundry room took up the front side, and there was a living room that took up the back end. The house had 5 sets of sliding glass doors, so you can imagine, those awesome energy bills, especially during the summers in Florida. Anyhow, we used one of the sliding glass doors to enter and leave, the property if we were staying on the property. So we would enter or leave the house, but we'd only go on the property. We would still leave the front door and lock it if we went to leave the property. The west end of the house had an addition added with 3 rooms and a living room. You could tell it was an add-on because when you entered the barn part from it, the part with the loft bedroom and everything, the walls by the dividing doorway had outdoor siding on it, a little outdoor light fixture. You could tell that, this portion was added on. Anyhow, I was working in the shop. It was July 2012. I had the bay doors closed because it had been a rainy month. I was trying to keep my tools from rusting, unsuccessfully, mind you. I was cleaning this 1891 revolver. I probably was in there for about an hour when suddenly lightning struck close by. It startled me, when the lights flickered. I figured to myself, well, it's been stormy lately. I'll wait 5, see if it passes. It's a little joke about Florida. You don't like the weather, do you? Wait 5 minutes or drive 5 miles. So, as I'm finishing up, all of a sudden lightning hits the shop. The hit came through the front wall and slammed into the concrete at the base of that wall. Little bits of concrete sand bounced off the side of my neck as I cringed. The lights went out, which plunged the shop into darkness, following the blinding white flash. Probably a split second beforehand. The shop had an almost sanitized smell to it. I ran towards the door that faces the house and sort of remember kicking it open, revolver in my hand, as if I was going to take on the storm that would be standing there represented as a violent and dangerous intruder wearing a trench coat. The true ruthlessness of the storm that came out of nowhere was now vividly displayed in front of me. The mist from the almost 3 inches of rain that was falling, billowing past me and into the darkness of the now powerless workshop. I froze for a few minutes. I pondered running the 100 or so meters to the sliding glass doors of the house. Another semi-close strike, and I'm off, holding the revolver in my right hand as I immediately begin to slosh into the near whitewater rapids that I had not noticed a moment before. That is my winding driveway. Water gushing towards the front of the property and right past the shop like an angry, overflowing creek. As I'm running, slowed only by the flow of floodwaters now crashing constantly against my legs, I am now feeling as if someone with an invisible hand is grabbing my shirt, pulling it 6 inches from my chest and twisting it clockwise, just as all the hair on my neck and arms stand straight up. I think to myself in a period of time I can only describe as microseconds. I'm holding a piece of iron and in knee-high water. As that thought passes through my mind, I get about 30 feet from the sliding glass doors, thinking, sweet safety, it's just ahead. And I find out as I step out of the driveway, gushing waters, onto a small concrete slab a few inches higher that was originally set there for campers. I'm unable to slow myself down, so, before I can even tell my brain squirrel to slow my body down, I begin to slide and fall backwards onto my butt, slamming my hands down to break my fall, putting that clean revolver about 8 inches into the black mud, with my hand giving it the death grip. I slide into the accumulated 4 inches of puddle that is gathered in the high-trafficked zone of my yard, my legs sliding straight up the doors. When I slide to a stop, resting on my upper back and shoulders, completely soaked and covered in mud. Muddy water splashing up onto the once rain-cleaned sliding glass doors. Without hesitation, I rolled to my side and brought my legs to the ground, submerging them in the returning puddle my slide had displaced. I opened the sliding glass with my left hand and rolled into the kitchen, onto the red tile floor. Safety. Not a moment later, lightning hits the pine tree not 6 feet from the doors. Again, bright white flash, loud crash. I rolled myself to my feet and slammed the muddy revolver onto the countertop, and I proceeded to run towards the staircase, which ran up the wall that joined the addition that was added on, and led up to the loft. Under it, there was a handcrafted cedar work desk. I used to have a computer there. A side note, I'd never just leave a firearm on the counter in my kitchen. But my kids were all at school, the wife was at work. Considering the circumstances, I made my choice. So I set my sights for under the desk, and as I took my first couple of steps, it finally happened. Lightning hits the house. The house flashes a bright white light, and that same smell from the shop returns. I leapt towards the desk that was under the stairs. The bolt rode the exhaust pipe of our wooden stove down to the tiles under a back leg, which is where it grounded through, exploding. I was less than 2 feet from the stove in a full run. Pieces of the tile bounced off my face and right underarm. I made a huge leap, but for some reason my arms and legs seized up and locked straight down. I contorted into the shape of a human sausage link and landed promptly onto my face and chest. I was hearing little bits of the tile randomly fall across the house. I began to remove everything metallic, that I had on me. My wallet, my steel-toe boots, my watch, my belt. I even removed my wedding ring and tossed it into the living room. Ding, 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 ding. My heart was pounding. I couldn't seem to take in any oxygen and utilize it. All my muscles ached. I laid there and I started to shiver. I imagine it was from the intense adrenaline, and maybe from being drenched with water and mud. It took what felt like forever for the strikes to fade and the storm to subside. Surveying the damage later with my wife, we found our phone cords had been blown out of the walls. We found a geode that was set on the wood stove was completely charred. Bits of tile were found upstairs and even on my bed in the above loft. The amp on the wall developed a weird hum from that point on. Since then, I have had quite a few years to reflect on the situation. I have had uncontrollable anxiety when lightning starts up. I know I'm not safe anywhere. While trying to work through it over these years, I have watched a lot of meteorological videos pertaining to lightning. Sadly, it has me feeling as if lightning is highly selective. It seeks people out sometimes. It even gets people more than once. You know, it reminds me when one time about, 10 years before this, I had picked up this hitchhiker walking down the side of the road one day on my way home from work. I don't recommend picking up hitchhikers, but anyway, this guy had a severe limp, and he looked like he was in a lot of pain. He looked like it was very difficult for him to stand on one of his legs. It was like one of his legs couldn't bend at the knee. So, I picked him up, and as soon as he got in the van, when he started talking to me, he was almost shouting. And he then told me, he was deaf. And so, as we were riding along, he told me out loud he appreciated me for being a good Samaritan and picking him up. His truck had run out of gas. All I have to do is drop him off at a gas station. He'll borrow a gas can. He's going to get his truck, filled up. No big deal. And somehow the conversation got on to why he was deaf, and he told me that, he had been struck by lightning one day when he was coming home from work. He lived in an apartment complex that had a parking garage, and the parking garage was 2 levels, and he said he was on the bottom level, the first level, and lightning had struck through the roof of the top level, through the concrete of the top level, straight down and into him at the base of his neck and shot out of his left leg. He said it made him deaf, and it fused several of his vertebrae and his left knee, which was why he was walking the way he was. And he pulled out his cell phone, which, if you know, 2002, 2003, they looked kind of silly compared to now, but he had one that was set up for a disabled person who was deaf. And I don't know if these things exist anymore, but it was a deaf phone, and he proceeded to chat with his mother and tell her, he was getting in his truck, he was going to be home soon. So I had never thought about this guy again for many, many years. But something that he had told me afterwards, before I dropped him off, he told me that he thought lightning picked who it hit. It will always pick who it hits. Lightning will hit who it wants when it wants. Years later, and after my experience, I am having a very hard time not believing that fact. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment below. Thanks for listening. This was a true story that happened to me. I hope you have a good night, and stay safe.